I'm going to introduce my husband. My husband is Alan Roth, and he is a partner with Winston and Strawn. He has been a specialist in the small business administration loan process, the SBA loans, for approximately 30 years, dealing primarily with private equity. You probably is surprised that I even know what he does. He and I have been working together on getting, I say together very loosely, he's really been doing this, the entire loan process for us, but we went through the stimulus loan process, the CARES Act, which we're going to be talking about today, where you can secure a loan from the government that you don't have to pay back. So what we need Alan to explain to us in a broad overview is, please, why did the government initially create this loan?
Okay. Hello, everyone. First of all, before I start, I want to say that the views that are being expressed here are my views. They're not the views of my employer, Winston and Strawn. And then second, I want to wish everyone well and hope your families are safe and healthy. And for those that have family and friends with the virus, I wish them a very speedy recovery. The reason this act was passed, and it was passed very quickly, was back in the last recession. For those that were around in the last recession, one of the criticisms of Congress was that many people left the workforce and did not come back to the workforce, and the solution that was proposed to congressional leaders was, if we have another recession or we have a pandemic as we have now and people are leaving the workforce, it's really incumbent upon the government to provide a stimulus to business, provide grants and other aid to keep people on the workforce. And so the program, and mostly it's been talking about small businesses. It's called the Payment Protection Program, Payroll Protection Program of the CARES Act, which is the first part of the act. If you were to look at the statute, and it's a smaller part, $350 billion in the overall $2.2 trillion act. And the goal of that is to provide small businesses with an amount of money equal to 2.5 months of payroll, and have them keep their employees on payroll. And then if your business owners use that payroll, then those amounts are forgiven. This also, and it has not gotten much attention, also applies for all of you that are independent contractors, meaning you either have your own studio where you're working on your own, or you work at a club, or you work at you work at a gym and you're a 1099, or you're a personal trainer on your own. And this program is intended to allow you to also access 2.5 months of your average salary that you've received over the prior 12 months. So let me explain that a little bit. The whole idea is that if you are an independent contractor, your employer can, or the club you work at, you're an independent contractor, so you're not an employee, the gym you work at, the studio you work at, the owner of the studio cannot apply for a loan to cover your payroll or to pay the amounts that they would otherwise pay you, but you are entitled for what you've been paid over the past year to apply, get 2.5 months, and in essence, pay yourself salary over 2 months and not have to pay that money back.
And what I'm going to clarify here is that many of us are group fitness instructors. We teach a couple classes at the Y. We teach a class at Gold's Gym. Maybe we're at a JCC. Maybe we also teach in a church basement somewhere. Or we're a personal trainer and we go into people's homes, or we give part of our payment to a gym, or we're basically paid maybe by a gym or by individuals, and we're paid as independent contractors. And that means that you're at 1099. You're an independent contractor. You're not a W-2. You don't have taxes being taken out of your checks. And that you might receive from the Y, from the Gold's Gym, from the JCC. So you typically have to create and submit your own federal taxes and your own state taxes. And you need to collect all your paychecks, all your 1099 from your employers here, there, and everywhere. And this is what you claim to the government that you have been paid, and you pay taxes upon it. So what Alan is going to explain is it's really two parts of this stimulus package. You get to ask for money from the government to keep you employed so you don't go on unemployment, because they're predicting almost 47 million people going on unemployment, and this is a way for the government to stave off this many people going on unemployment. So you're going to apply for this loan from the SBA, and if you receive the loan, you will also be forgiven on the loan. So there's how do we figure out the amount of the loan, and then how do we also figure out the forgiveness? So that's what Alan's going to explain.
What you got to step back. The rules that have come out to date, which have been changing daily, have not really defined how this is going to work for an independent contractor. For a business, the rules, they've been defining them, coming out. The applications for independent contractors are going to start to be accepted on Friday. So that I believe in the next day or two, we'll start to see some information about how to deal with an independent contractor. Because if you think about it, step back and say, okay, what you have to do is you take your 1099s for 2019, add them all together, divide them by 12, multiply by 2.5. That is the amount of your loan. In addition to that, you can also add in any amounts that you paid as an independent contractor for your health insurance, dental insurance, there'll be some life insurance, and also any contributions you made to your 401k, your Keogh plan if you have it, your IRA. Those are all the items that are specified in the statute that you can use to come up with what your total amount of compensation was for the year, divide it by 12, multiply by 2.5. At least that's how we think it's going to work. We just haven't seen any detail other than saying that an independent contractor can apply. And it's sort of, and we have a lot of questions about that. And the questions that we have are, for example, okay, I get the loan. Do I have to pay myself? It's sort of the bookkeeping aspect has not yet been clarified. So what do you do? How do you figure it out? Number one is, if you have an accountant that you work with, contact that accountant. They may have insight into what they're seeing others like yourselves are doing. Because again, we're all sort of learning on this on our own. Number two is you have to access this through a bank. Perhaps the bank can also be, there are some online lenders that are trying to be part of this process. They may get added. That may be easier than going to a bank. So we'll just have to see as that develops. But you get this loan. What can you use the loan for? You can use the loan to pay yourself for 8 weeks, what you would normally pay, 2/12 of what you made in the prior year. You can allocate some rent. Perhaps you have a home office paying yourself rent and some of your utilities. And so, I believe they will come out with more details on the uses of this, but this is going to be pretty expansive. And at the end of that 8-week period, the government will come in and say, we're forgiving it. You don't have to pay it back. And that's going to be an interesting process of calculating the amount that will be forgiven. We just don't have any clarity on that, but it will present some opportunities to help you through what has been a difficult time, for all of us.
And what Alan is sharing with us, and which is very important for all of us to understand, and my staff understands this all too clearly, as do I, is the government is not only changing the interpretation of the act daily, it seems as though sometimes they're changing it hourly. They have not come out with any specific statements regarding independent contractors. So what we're trying to convey to you is things you should collect in anticipation of going to your bank or going to your accountant and talking to them about what you're able to get in your loan package. So we put together a document. We'll put it at the end of the webinar that tells you exactly what forms you guys need to collect. So to determine the amount of the loan, which Alan explains was taking your 12 months worth of income and dividing it by 12 and then multiplying it by 2.5, that means 2.5 months is the equivalent for the loan that they've determined for businesses. And we assume that they're going to apply this same loan process to independent contractors. On April 3rd, the government came out with the loan availability for businesses, and April 10th, this Friday, is when they're going to open the loans availability for independent contractors. Now, $350 billion sounds like a lot of money, but when you look at all of America and who's going to apply for these loans, it's going to go pretty quickly. So being one that cares deeply about this industry, and this is a horrible time in our global history, I want you to take care of yourselves, and I want to protect the fitness industry. So we did the webinar last Tuesday regarding businesses, and I highly recommend that you look at that one. But for independent contractors, what Alan stipulated is, number one, collect your federal income tax form, your 1040, get that ready for what you paid last year for your taxes. Make sure you know where that is. You have a copy of that. Make sure you have your state income tax forms, okay? Make sure you have a copy of that. We're not sure what they're going to forgive or what they're going to allow, but keep these documents close to you. Find your health insurance payments. What did you pay last year in health insurance? And can you divide it up and make it equal to 1 month and multiply it by 2.5 for 2.5 months? Dental insurance payments, life insurance payments, 401k retirement payments, and also IRA, your retirement contributions. So collect all the data that you paid. Make sure you have it handy, make sure you have it organized. And what Alan has always impressed upon me is know thy banker, okay? Get to know somebody in your bank that does a loan. And you need to make sure maybe your bank doesn't come under this umbrella of being, the term is an existing SBA certified lender. An SBA certified lender. That means a small business association approved or certified lender. Your bank may not even be one. So you could actually check around and find a bank, or maybe your banker can recommend one that's in your area. It's not like you can walk in, so you're going to have to email them. You're going to have to call them and be persistent. But get an association or an affiliation. And then, as Alan also mentioned, talk to your accountant. See what money you paid in taxes. See how you figured out your income. Now, we're getting a lot of people that are asking interesting questions. And I did mention about the amount of the loan versus the amount of the forgiveness. And Alan, can you talk a little bit about that? Of course, they don't have anything documented for independent contractors at this time.
So but there's a couple of things I want to talk about. The first is, last evening the Treasury came out with a number of questions, and one of the questions was, and this was geared more towards the business owner than trainers or or instructors, and it says, should payments that an eligible borrower were made to an independent contractor or sole proprietor be included in calculations of the eligible borrower's payroll costs? So that is the business owner. Can they include the payments that they made to you? The answer was no. Any amounts that an eligible borrower has paid to an independent contractor or sole proprietor should be excluded from the eligible business's payroll costs. However, an independent contractor or sole proprietor will itself be eligible for a loan under the payroll protection program if it satisfies the applicable requirements. So there are a couple of requirements that I'll mention that we'll probably go into more detail when you go to your bank. The first is you have to answer a question that have you or any business that you've owned been suspended, debarred, proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, voluntarily excluded from participation by any federal government agency, or are you presently involved in any bankruptcy? So there'll be a question of, and don't know how they'll apply to an individual, whether if you're going through a personal bankruptcy proceeding, how that will be reviewed. They will ask, have you defaulted on any loans that have been guaranteed by a federal agency? And frankly, the biggest loans that you think about they could be SBA loans if you had a small business, but it could also be a student loan. Student loans are often guaranteed by the federal government, so that's a question you'll have to answer. The other is they will ask you if you have been subject to an indictment, criminal information, arraignment, or other means by which formal criminal charges are brought in any jurisdiction, or presently incarcerated or on probation or parole. That may exclude you from eligibility. And then they will ask, within the last 5 years, for any felony, have you been convicted or pleaded guilty or pleaded nolo contendere, placed on pretrial diversion, or been placed on any form of parole or probation, including probation before judgment. So you have to look. There'll be some criminal backgrounds that'll have to be looked at, and it's also the United States has to be your principal place of business. You cannot live in another country and just work in the United States, come across the border if that is what you have been doing.
And people are asking, Alan, what if I worked at a place, but I no longer work there? Or maybe I only worked there for 6 months or a smaller period of time.
You're going to do so at the end of the year. You got either a W-2 for 2019. You have either a W-2 or a 1099. You don't have to have filed your 2019 tax return because, as everyone knows, because of the pandemic, that's been extended to July. But you should have received your W-2s and your 1099s. Now, if someone is both a 1099 and a W-2, how are they going to look at that? Not sure. The rules haven't come out. But if you only receive W-2s, you will not be eligible. But if you receive 1099s and W-2s, you may. But what you should do, as I said before, is take your 1099s, add them all up, add in what you can show is rent, perhaps even a rent allocation on your apartment, if that is where you work out. If you have your home office, similar to a home office deduction, take the portion of utilities that you would take in your home office, or if you have your own studio, whatever your phone is, and your other utilities, and those are all amounts that can be paid during when you receive the loan. But to figure out your loan, it's just simple. At least if it's done like the businesses, take your 1099s, add them all up, divide it by 12, and then multiply by 2.5.
And we've also gotten a question. What is the deadline? And
it's interesting that what the government came out over the weekend, they had said that this program is a first come, first serve. It is until the money runs out, it'll be available. But I had heard that there is a proposal in Congress to add another $350 billion to it this Thursday. So there may be more than enough money for this to not only go to the businesses, but also to the independent contractors and the sole proprietors.
And I'm getting multiple questions from people that they're getting W-2s from some of their studios, and they're getting some payments through 1099s as independent contractors. They really haven't clarified that answer yet, but you need to keep both documentation because you may be able to claim the portion as an independent contractor under this bill. But again, they have not specified this. Another person asked Alan, what application do they use? And if you look at the application that we put up online for you, and I will ask my SCW staff to type in the business link, the scwfit.com/business, we put up the application as it stands now. But if you look over the application, it's not that scary to fill out. It's relatively simple to fill out. But what I recommend that you do is it looks just like the business application. So where it says business name, that's probably going to be your personal name. Where it says business address, it's probably going to be your home address. But it is at this point in time on Tuesday, it is the same loan application. This may switch and there might be different details that are applied, but the loan opens on Friday. So that's why you should accumulate, collect all your information, talk to your accountant. And somebody asked us also, Alan, where did they find a lender?
Well, it'll be, your bank, if you have a checking account, your normal bank, check with them first. If not, I believe they will be announcing some resources of who is available, of which lenders will be available. There is, if you go to, probably the easiest place to find the forms, if you type in and you go to the U.S. Treasury Department, go to their website, there is a red banner at the top for the coronavirus. Click on that. That will take you to a page, and that will contain all the latest documents that were either issued by the Treasury or the SBA. And on that, I believe one of the documents on there is a list of the current eligible lenders, and I'm sure they're going to be updating it regularly so that you have a place to access it. Because for the loans that you will be applying for, these are small. They should be done. They're saying that once you apply, you should, and give them all the necessary paperwork, you should get the money within 36 hours.
And this is interesting. We got a question from somebody who said, I make under $10,000 and I just teach a couple classes a week and I train a couple clients. Am I still eligible for this loan?
Yes, there is no de minimis amount. Obviously it's, the banks are going to need and the government's going to need some verification of your some verification of what your income is. The only way they can do that is by the 1099s you've received from those places that used you, whether it be Uber, Lyft. You're also a personal trainer at a club or a studio.
Also, we've gotten questions about the EIDL, about the emergency loan that's available. Can you apply for both of those?
You can. The emergency loan is sort of difficult. They do have an express process where you can get $10,000 as a grant. I've heard it's been very slow, but the EIDL is really to help you with things other than payroll. You have a business, you have a small business, a studio. It's to help you with the thing, keep that business running other than for payroll, rent, and utilities. The downside of the EIDL is if the loan amount is over $25,000, you will have to perhaps provide collateral to secure that loan. If it's under $25,000, there's no collateral. But what you do in that, type into your browser SBA disaster loan, and that will take you to the EIDL information, and you then have to register and receive a number, and then that'll allow you to start filling out the information through the website. So the difference between the EIDL is, number one, there's no forgiveness aspect. It's payable. They will look and give you a term of anywhere between 10 and 30 years to pay it back. You may have to provide collateral, and it's at a 3.75% interest rate. But you do that through the SBA. The PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program, that comes through a bank, or there are going to be some online lenders that'll help you to process it. I don't know who the online lenders are, but I assume perhaps even some of the tax preparers are probably that do your quick taxes and get your refund. They may be part of this process. So check with them and just search around to see if you can find the name of an organization that can help you.
And people are asking, where do I find, I talked to Chase, my bank, and they told me to wait until they reach back to me. And that's something that's a little risky, because what they're doing is they're processing loans of clients that are preferred clients. They're probably larger with greater funds at the bank. You need to make sure that if at all possible, you have a relationship with the banker or the bank. And possibly, Alan, do you have another suggestion?
No, I think you do. I would look around. I think there's going to be a lot more advertisements online for those that will help you to process it. You have to understand that this program was built in what's called the 7A program. The 7A program was a business loan program for individuals that you really need the assistance of the SBA as a guarantor on the loan to get that loan. And the reason they used the 7A, what I'll call the 7A architecture for that loan, was that there were 800 7A lenders around the country. So it was an easy means of distribution. Now you're seeing additional companies will also be distributing the money. The problem is that the traditional 7A lenders, most did 15 to 20 7A loans a year, maybe a few more. Now they're being asked to process thousands within the next 2 weeks, and the system is just overwhelmed. So when a Chase says, we'll call you, I would, don't be bashful. Don't be bashful. Keep bugging them, because this is important for your survival. So there's no protocol here. Don't feel bad. You're not, you just have to make your presence felt.
That's a lovely way to say, be persistent and bug them. Make your presence felt. I'm also getting questions about people saying, I got laid off, I filed for unemployment, but I'm also an independent contractor. One person asked that. And then somebody else said, I was a full-time employee, I got laid off, but I also own a small business. They own a small studio on the side. Can they both be on unemployment and file for the CARES Act, through the CARES Act?
The whole idea of the PPP program is so people do not file for unemployment. So someone who's split, they have a W-2 and 1099, and they get sort of the best of both worlds. It's unknown. We're just waiting for those kinds of questions to be answered by the government when they issue those rules.
And somebody asked, isn't there unemployment? And I know, Alan, your specialty is not unemployment or HR, but isn't there an unemployment compensation benefit for independent contractors? And again, this person said, can I apply for both? And what Alan said was, it seems unlikely. The whole purpose of this CARES Act was so that what happened in 2007 with the recession doesn't happen again, that people don't go on unemployment and then 2008, 2009, 2010, they never get off unemployment. The goal of this loan is really for small businesses. It's not particularly crafted towards independent contractors, but it's really about small businesses that can say, I have some employees that are under 500 in number. I have employees. I figure out what I paid them for 2.5 months. I figured out including their health benefits, etc. I put that together, I multiply it by 2.5, and then what I can do is the government, after I use this loan, let's say from April 15th to May 15th to June 15th, so for 8 weeks, for 2 months, I use this money, I have to prove back to the government to get my forgiveness. I have to prove to the government I paid my staff, I paid their health benefits, I can use part of the loan for rent, I can use it for my utilities, and I have to make sure that at least 75% of that loan is dedicated to paying my staff. 25% can go to utilities and go to my rent or my mortgage. But then also I have to demonstrate that I had the same number of employees before this whole process as I have at the end when it comes due, let's say at June 15th or June 30th. So I have to make sure if I had, as Alan has explained to me before, if I had 10 employees before this whole mess, and then now I only have 8 employees, I have to reduce my forgiveness by 20%. So the whole goal was really for businesses, and it really was for making people not go on unemployment. So although Alan doesn't have, and the government hasn't supplied strict guidelines as far as can I do unemployment for my full-time employer when I was paid as a W-2 and get some forgiveness, get this part of this CARES package, because I taught as an independent instructor and I taught as an independent personal trainer. Can I get both? It's probably doubtful, but it may come to pass. So again, this is Tuesday. The loan application for independent contractors starts on Friday. The loan application for businesses actually started last Friday on April 3rd, just 4 days ago. And even some banks at that point weren't ready to accept the loans because of this glut of applications. So in anticipation, I'm going to repeat this, and I apologize for you guys who were on the webinar, straight up at the time we started. For the people that entered later, you guys, there is a document up on our site, scwfit.com/business. SCW is very involved with business. We have a whole business summit tracked at all our Mania conferences. We have, you need to get together your federal income tax form, your state income tax form, your health insurance payment documentation, what you paid in health insurance for all of last year, dental insurance, life insurance payments, 401k retirement contributions, your IRA retirement contributions, everything for the year, divide it by 12, multiply it by 2.5, so it's really 2.5 months. That is most likely the way the government is going to interpret this loan for independent contractors, because this is the way they interpret it for businesses. But again,
so one of the things that's interesting about this is that you get the money, we'll figure out the mechanics of how it's forgiven and what you can spend. You don't have to pay any taxes on that money that's forgiven. So it's it truly is the government giving away money. So more details will follow. We just I know it's very frustrating for everyone in that the rules have just been slow to come out on how a sole proprietor or an independent contractor applies to access the money, and then what's the mechanic of what do you have to do to have it forgiven, what can it be used for, and what documentation do I have to provide to the bank or to the government in order to have that forgiveness occur. If you it would seem to me that most of it should be forgiven for an individual or an independent contractor without a whole lot of work to it, but we're just uncertain.
Now, I know this might sound a little rudimentary to you, Alan, but can you please explain to people again, what is the difference between an employee, an independent contractor, a sole proprietor, and an LLC?
Well, an independent contractor is someone who works on their own, and technically they are not under the control of the person that's hired them. Set your own hours, work your own schedule, and so at 1099 you get paid a gross amount, and from that you're obligated to pay your whatever taxes are owed on the amounts that you've received. A W-2 is an employee, someone, you get your taxes are withheld, you follow the direction of your supervisors, maybe you get health benefits, but you get a form at the end of the year that's called a W-2, and that's generally thought of someone who's under the dominion and supervision of an employer. An LLC is just an entity that can operate a business, and many times an individual will be the sole member of the LLC. If you are a sole member of the LLC, then you are filing your taxes as a sole proprietor on Schedule C of your tax return. So it's like an independent contractor, but you have an LLC. And why would you have an LLC? Well, there are liability issues that if in the course of doing whatever work you're doing, the LLC will protect you from many of those liabilities. And what was the fourth? Was there a fourth one?
Sole proprietor.
Well, sole proprietor is just like an independent contractor. You're on a business on your own. You're not doing it through an LLC, and you may receive 1099s, or you may just receive payments from other businesses or people for what you work. The issue that becomes difficult with a sole proprietor is, do you have 1099s, or did people write you checks? So the difficulty is then, how do you verify your income for purposes of getting the loan? I believe there will be guidance on what you will need, but that's the challenge for if you are a sole proprietor that does not have 1099s.
We also have gotten a question here. Will this webinar be recorded? And it is being recorded, and it'll be put up on the site, and it takes almost 24 hours for us to get it on the site. So please be patient with that. I'm not sure who Jose is. Maybe my staff can figure that out. But the recording of the webinar will be up on that business site, the scwfit.com/business. We also put the application up there for you, so you can print it out a couple times, fill it out, figure out what you need to do. It also included that list, what documents to collect, and people you should connect with now that can assist you with this loan process. And again, I'm going to repeat this. You need to connect with your accountant. You need to connect with a banker to make sure you've got something in the works of where you can go. I have had a few questions, Alan, of I have one husband who's a W-2, who's a full-time employee, and yet I'm an independent contractor, but we filed jointly. So how does somebody like that approach this process?
You just take your 1099s and you take it to the bank or whoever else is providing the loan, and work through those rules. You're considered separate if you're a 1099 then from your husband's W-2.
Thank you. That was great. And I heard from a sole proprietor who owns a fitness studio that he writes receipts for all income taken in from clients and members, and he deposit it all into one bank account, and it makes it easier for him to track his income for tax purposes. But as independent contractors, if you're getting these paychecks from all these different places, because we're personally training at one place and we're teaching at another, you will get your 1099s from your employer, from the person who keeps you employed, and they will tell you what you've made, and that's what you file for your federal income tax, your state income tax, etc. I'm seeing, let me look here, another person wants to know when they apply. You guys, it's this Friday, so try to get your documents together. What about people that have a partnership with someone in an LLC? How do you document your income in that regard?
It would be the same way you'd look at your partnership return and see what 1099s you received as an LLC. Again, the documentation will be more difficult because part of this program is the verification and what can the banks or the others that are dispersing it, how can they verify it? This is all about verification. And so to the extent that you don't have 1099s and you received cash or you received checks and you didn't account for it, I think it's going to be difficult. But there'll be some method of determining this income. They're unclear how, if you received a K-1 from your LLC and you just took distributions, how that will be treated. Again, we're waiting for guidance on how to deal with these items.
And what we'll try to do is, if we get any forms or any guidance from the government that we can download and place up on that business site, we will do that. If any of you were on the phone, were on the webinar last Tuesday and you were looking at how much your loan would be for your business, and I apologize for addressing this during this independent contractor webinar, but we had said that if you aren't forgiven the entire amount, you can keep and pay back the loan that's left over, the amount that's left over. Initially, we said it was just at a 0.5% interest, and yet they changed it last night to at a 1% interest. And that just documents how things are changing so quickly. I have one more question. We really are kind of running out of time here, but somebody asked, if you do get this loan as an independent contractor, do you account it for revenue at the end of the year when you're filing your end of year taxes?
No, it's not revenue. It's not, if it's forgiven, and let's assume that it's forgiven, there's no income tax paid. So it truly is a grant or subsidy from the government. Again, we're waiting to see the rules that come out from the government. If you have to repay the loan, and we're unclear how that circumstance will work, you will have to pay that back over 2 years, monthly principal and interest, and 1% interest.
What 1%? That's like, if you get $10,000, that's 1%. It's $100. Okay, so that's pretty great. The one last thing, because I've seen this a couple times. Someone said, I take in cash. My clients pay me cash, but they do declare the amount on the taxes. So that's great. That's great that you do it. If you take cash and you put it in your pocket and you don't declare it anyway, it's cash. You're not getting the loan. But if you do declare it on your taxes, you have it in your federal income tax, your state tax. That's a good thing. Collect those documents. So, Alan, do you have any closing remarks for us?
No, I would just, look at the form, try to fill it out, get in contact with any lender. I'm sure there are going to be other smaller lenders that will help process this. And really, they say in the guidance, they've said it's first come, first serve. So get out in front of it as quickly as you can.
And we feel at SCW, all of us at SCW feel very committed to helping you guys. The loans are out there. We're a very struggling industry. They closed our gyms. People go into our facilities, they sweat on each other, they breathe heavily, they cough on each other. You're in close proximity with each other. We need to stick together and help each other and help our organizations survive this pandemic. And for those of you who are group fitness instructors out there, kudos to you for going on Facebook, for doing Zooms, for keeping your clients healthy. This is one of the first times in history that I think our owners, managers, and directors are really experiencing the value of group fitness. So thank you for doing that. And you personal trainers that are sticking with your clients, older clients, younger clients, that you're committed to continuing to train them, keep doing it. Don't be afraid to ask them to contribute to a personal Venmo account that you guys might set up. There is no indignity for asking for donations, okay? Because you deserve to get paid a fee for your services. If someone can't afford to pay, that's fine. The class is out there, the training session's out there. But if they can donate to you, set up your Venmo accounts. What you provide the society is very valuable. And we appreciate you, and I wish you all good health. Stay safe during this, and we're gonna make it through together.